Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another absolutely awesome episode of Movie Battleground. Tonight, we got two great competitors, and we got three really great questions that I can't wait to get into, so we won't take too long with the introductions. First, we have coming in at a record of 2 wins and 2 losses. It is Asher Bold Gold. Asher, how are you doing tonight?
Good. I am ready to win.
All right. Short and sweet. I like it. And his opponent, you know him, you love him. He is Nick, the name Twohig.
Yeah,
Nick, how you feel about your match tonight?
I'm doing good. I'm going to send out a survey. Everyone let me know how they feel about the name. Please get that back within a couple days. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward. I, too, am ready to play and have an outcome.
All right. Okay, guys, you know how this works. We got 3 questions. You have a certain amount of time to fight each one. I will be judging along with me. We have first, you've seen him a lot. He's been making the rounds. He's becoming a mainstay as a judge and a host in the fan leagues. It is Andrew James Barr. Andrew,
Hello.
look what we got tonight. How you feeling about the match?
Oh, I'm expecting a lot of fun with this match. These are 2 competitors that they're 2 of my go-tos when I want to have a good time when I'm seeing a match.
Oh.
Absolutely. And rounding out our judges panel tonight, you know him, you love him. He's also all over the fan leagues. He runs the random games, the random tournaments. He's your favorite Australian, or favorite New Zealander. Favorite New Zealander. I got him confused with Grant. It's Malcolm. Malcolm, how you doing?
First of all, how can you confuse me with Grant? We don't even look alike.
Wow.
And this match should be fun, but I know I've judged a few of Ash's matches. I think I might have judged one of Nick's matches back in the past as well. I'm actually not too sure about that, but it's going to be interesting to see what both these people bring.
Absolutely. I'm excited for it. So we'll get right into our first question. The rules are we get 90 seconds for an opening. You will have 5 minutes for your general fight, followed by a 60-second closing. Andrew's going to keep time for me. And remember, guys, throughout the match, you have the opportunity one time to add a minute to your opening or closing statement. So don't forget about that. So we'll get right into this. Question number 1. What was the worst acting debut of the 1990s? And Asher, for this question, we'll start with you for your 90-second opening statement.
Okay, cool. In 1972, Francis Ford Coppola created one of the greatest movies of all time, The Godfather. And in 1974, he followed suit with what's considered one of the best sequels and prequels of all time, The Godfather Part 2. Both had incredible acting, incredible writing, incredible suspense, incredible direction. The Godfather Part 3 comes around 1990, and everybody has a lot of hype for it. But there is an actress by the name of Sofia Coppola, this is Francis Ford Coppola's daughter, who just does not know how to act. She plays Mary Corleone, and she is just not good at it at all. One scene in particular, her death scene, is one of the funniest moments in that film, in an otherwise pretty cohesive film, but her performance in it just derails it every time she's on screen. It would make what is otherwise a very incredible trilogy a little bit tampered. It makes it a little bit subpar at the end, which is why I chose Sofia Coppola's debut in The Godfather Part 3 as the worst debut of the 90s.
All right, Asher, good pick. Or bad pick, depending on how you look at it. Nick, we'll go over to you for your 90-second opening. What do you got?
Sure. To make the same point that my opponent did, just only much shorter, Star Wars happened, and then The Phantom Menace happened. The Phantom Menace with Ahmed Best as Jar Jar Binks. Now, I'm going to start off by saying the hate, the bullying that Ahmed Best got after The Phantom Menace, totally uncalled for, totally not cool. Seen him in interviews, seemed like a decent guy, decent human being, but that does not take away the fact that his performance as Jar Jar Binks really, really hit one of the most unhittable franchises at that point in time, one of the most called for things to come back. And it's the worst part. What makes it the worst performance is it's the worst performance in an already bad movie. Without Jar Jar, the movie's not good. You have Jake Lloyd as Anakin Skywalker, and you have like galactic relations that are just super boring. And to be the worst part of an already bad movie, really shows what a terrible debut it is. And I think since we're talking about debut, which we'll get into the 5 minutes, we need to talk about long-lasting effect and how just Ahmed Best's career after Star Wars in 1999 really just sort of went into the tubes, and he really had nowhere to go. And while I don't agree with any of the hate, or not the hate, the bullying, the stuff he got online, only a really awful performance could have brought that evil out of the depths of the internet. So my choice is Ahmed Best in The Phantom Menace.
All right, 2 franchise-marring performances. Guys, whenever ready, you got 5 minutes. Duke it out.
Okay, so while I agree, and I think a lot of people agree that Jar Jar is one of the worst characters in movie history, I wouldn't say it's necessarily his acting debut that caused all of that. I think you have a very bad director at the helm. I think you have very bad writing at the helm. And I think you have a lot of other things that are going into it that make it a very bad movie in general. I think a very bad debut like a Sofia Coppola coming from Francis Ford Coppola, who couldn't really tell her anything because she was his daughter, in an otherwise pretty cohesive movie, derails the movie. And I think the debut of somebody who makes a movie worse because it's already good but makes it worse, that's the sign of a bad debut.
Sure. So what I just heard is while Francis Ford Coppola is a great director, he also didn't do the best directing of Sofia Coppola. I'm probably very alone on this, but I don't think Sofia Coppola's performance in Godfather 3 is all that terrible. It's actually cool when you look at it from a certain lens, in that the character she plays is very similar to her own life. So she plays the daughter of Michael Corleone, who has to just live under the weight. She's a very innocent character who has to live under the weight of all these insane expectations, kind of like Sofia Coppola had to do while being directed by her father. So if you look at the movie through that sort of lens, it's actually a pretty interesting performance in that, okay, she's actually being very meta because this is probably how she would be in real life. The other thing is a performance looks worse if the rest of the movie is good. And you said it yourself, that Godfather 3 would have been a well put together movie, and that performance sort of sticks out. So to me, that doesn't make it as bad as a performance that's in a bad movie and sticks out way beyond even the rest of the crap that's already in that movie. That's why Ahmed Best, I think, really sticks out as having a bad debut. And like I said in my opening, I want to talk about what happened after. He was locked into playing Jar Jar for the rest of his life. The only other things he's done since then is play Jar Jar in the next 2 movies, and then he's voiced Jar Jar in video games, he's voiced him in TV shows, but he's gotten no other gigs. I looked up his IMDb credits. He has no other gigs. That debut killed his career and locked him into a performance that people hated him for. People are starting to come around, but only because he got so much hate and bullying. People are trying to counteract that. And while I don't encourage any of that kind of stuff at all, that doesn't negate the terribleness of their performance.
Okay, so playing off of her role as her father's living under the shadows of her father, just like that movie, that's a good point. However, I will counter with her death scene, which goes exactly like this. Dad,
Do it.
Dad,
Do it.
Dad, I'm shot. Dad keels over and dies.
Yeah.
I do not think that death scene is worth a good performance and a good debut. Jar Jar had some very embarrassing moments in The Phantom Menace, but I would like to point out, I think the rest of the movie as a whole, you have Jake Lloyd with terrible lines and terrible delivery. You have very bad CGI. You have a bad plot line with wavering B points and stuff like that. I think the point of the argument that we're trying to make is whether the bad performance in a good movie makes it worse, which is what my point is, versus a bad performance in a bad movie makes it utterly worse, which is your point. And I'm going to say that a bad performance in an otherwise good movie makes the debut that much worse because there's a lot of pressure on you to be put into this situation. Star Wars has a lot of caliber, but the Godfather trilogy could have been something of incredible proportions. You have one of the best dramas of all time from the 70s coming back into the 90s, and it could have come full steam ahead, but you just
1 minute.
with this performance.
Sure, I'll give you the death scene. I'll give you that all day long, but I'm going to counter it with the scene where Vincent breaks up with her. A lot of people criticize it, but it's actually a really unique look at the innocence of the character, and that she has to sit there and she knows her father's watching. So while she's heartbroken, she needs to hold her complexion together, and she finally loses it when she sees that it was her father's making of telling Vincent to do this. So there are really good moments in Sofia Coppola's performance. I know not everyone's going to agree, but I see a really unique meta connection that she's drawing from, and that's something a good actress would do. Ahmed Best has no redeeming qualities, and I get what you're trying to argue, but to me, being the bad performance that sticks out in a bad movie is so much worse than being a good, because you can be an okay performance in a great movie and you'll stick out as bad.
It was not okay, my performance, and it wasn't the worst performance. I honestly do think, and I couldn't use him because it wasn't his debut, but Jake Lloyd's performance was not good. God, cool.
Okay, guys, pretty good fight. In my opinion, anyway, it's pretty even there so far. So got a while with these closing arguments. Asher, we started with you, so Nick, we'll let you go with your 60-second closing.
Sure. I agree. The Phantom Menace has Jake Lloyd. It has bad writing. It has all this terrible stuff, and yet Ahmed Best still sticks out as so much far worse. And looking at his career afterwards shows what a poor debut it was, and that he never got out of that rut that he was in, and he's still not out of it. And he got all the hate from the internet. Bullying not deserved, but like that hate can only come from such a bad performance, especially ruining a beloved franchise like Star Wars. He put in like poop fart jokes, like things that do not belong in Star Wars. Those are terrible acting choices. Sofia Coppola might have a terrible death scene. I mean, she might have some wooden dialogue, but there are some moments, like I mentioned with the breakup scene with Vincent, where she actually shows some promise. And she went on to work in Hollywood later. Maybe not as an actress, but she still works in Hollywood. Ahmed Best's career unfortunately started and stopped right there. They only bring him back when they need to remind people that, yeah, unfortunately, Jar Jar is still part of the canon. Just to bring up the meta thing again, I think it's really cool how she's Francis Ford Coppola's daughter. Clearly, she didn't get any direction because she didn't do that, so it was all on her, the performance, and she really handled it pretty well.
Time.
Jar Jar Binks with the fart and poop jokes, I really don't think that was the character and the actor who made that decision. I think that was the screenwriter and the director who made that decision. So I don't think that's an acting debut fault. I think that's a character building debut fault from the actual particular people in front of that job. I think Sofia Coppola's performance was her fault because she had the lines given to her, and those lines could be done in a very good instance. That breakup scene, she was stone-faced. I don't really see her hiding that at all. It was a very bad performance when she was broken up with also. I don't see that. She has a good career as a director, but she has never acted again. So to see that in that kind of performance clearly shows that that's a bad debut. I say Jake Lloyd is a worse performance in The Phantom Menace than Jar Jar Binks. I don't know if I'm alone in that. I would say it's worse, given the lines. I'm a person and my name is Anakin is pretty bad. So I would say you chose the wrong person in that situation. I was
okay, guys.
Great.
That was great. Great arguments. You both really brought it here in this first round. So we judges have a tough decision to make here. Andrew, we're going to start out with you. Which way you leaning?
Thanks, Kirk. Here's a problem. At the moment, I'm not leaning a specific way because we got two kind of different arguments. We got an argument where it's so bad it ruined a career versus so bad in a movie that is detracted because of how bad this one performance is. And I'm going to go. This was so tight. I'm gonna go with Nicholas. He brought up one thing that I did not hear a counter to, and it's that her performance looks so bad because of how good everything else in the movie is. It's the one thing I did not hear a counter on. So just by the slimmest of margins, I'm going Nicholas.
is 1 vote for Nicholas. Malcolm, we'll go to you next. Look at your point.
Yeah, this was really tough, but I'm probably going to go with Nicholas in this. I think he had a lot of good defense for Sophia, and like his arguments he brought up with Ahmed Best were pretty good as well. So yeah, that's why Nicholas gets my point.
Okay, that gives the point to Nicholas here. So the score stands at 1-0, and we will go right into our second fight here. Question number 2. What is the best crime/thriller of the 2000s? And Nick, this time we'll go to you with your opening argument.
Sure. So I picked The Departed. That's Depahhted. The Departed. The Oscar-winning movie, but that really doesn't matter if you know me. Like, Oscars really don't play into how great a movie is. They're all subjective. But still, it really stands the test of time. I know it's the point's probably going to come up that it's a remake of another movie, but the fact that it was still managed to be just as good as the original, if not better, and reach a wider audience, I think makes it the best crime thriller. Along with the fact that it's thrilling and it's got a really unique crime story. It's got great performances from Matt Damon, from Mark Wahlberg, from Leo DiCaprio, from all these people, from Jack Nicholson. You have a star-studded cast, and this is something that could have gone really wrong, but it's all these people just so strong in their element that it really makes for the best crime thriller of the 2000s. There's action-packed scenes where your heart's thumping, you're really in suspense, you're thrilled. There's crime. It's a crime thriller in the truest sense of the word, and it's from my home state, the Boston area. But yeah, I don't know if that plays for or against it, but I'll throw that in there too. The Departed.
All right. Asher, your turn. What do you got?
I got Zodiac. That's ZOOODIAHHC. Zodiac. Now, this movie was made in 2007 about the 1960s and 70s serial killer, the Zodiac killer, who still hasn't been found to this day. And that in itself makes it an incredibly dark and creepy movie because he could still be around. This movie is directed by David Fincher in a golden age of David Fincher movies coming around that time. He really has a good eye for thrilling suspense as well as cluing into a slow burn in his movies. This movie is a slow burn, but once it gets hitting, it goes. It has so much suspense, so much tension in this movie. He also did it with Seven. This guy can do no wrong with these kinds of movies, and this movie came out right before the golden age of Robert Downey Jr. This was actually his first role after that, so I can make that argument as well. But that's why I chose Zodiac. I'm done.
Is Zodiac versus The Departed. Fight it out.
Yeah, so you said slow burn. I think you meant to say a little boring and slow-paced. I love David Fincher. He's probably my best director. And you say it was in the golden age of David Fincher films. To me, this is not one of them. It does not compare to his other ones. And I know those weren't options because they're not in the 2000s. But calling it amongst David Fincher as a golden age, I just don't agree with. The issue, I think, with Zodiac for me is it's really Fincher's first time at trying to tell a true story. And I don't think that works with his style because the suspense that I felt in Seven, the thrill that I felt in Seven, and yes, Seven was a slow burn. I did not feel that in Zodiac because I knew that these characters weren't in danger. I don't have to know the actual story of the Zodiac killer, and I didn't, but I still just never felt any sense of suspense. The killing scenes were kind of meh, and the story of the Zodiac killer is an interesting one, but putting it in movie form, I don't have a killer to for lack of a better word, latch onto. It's sort of this faceless thing that doesn't give me any emotional attachment.
Well, that's kind of the point of it, though. And you said that he doesn't really have a good job of taking something that's true and putting it into a feature-length fictional art form. But that's kind of the point of it. The Zodiac Killer is kind of an enigma that's even somewhat fictitious, like a boogeyman of sorts. And then you put that into this film role, and it does become something. It does sort of, it takes you into that world. It immerses you. 1960s, 1970s San Francisco is this sort of area that's creepy at the same time in its heyday. It's bright, but it's also very creepy at night. You have scenes of women getting tied up in like these pastures, zip tied with their arms on a car. It's really creepy, really odd. By the way, I'm going to bring up The Departed for a second. Man, that is some great yelling acting. Some of the best yelling I've heard in a while. I love yelling, man. Yelling is great. Mark Wahlberg's yelling is through the roof in that movie. The Departed gets a lot of great praise for its movie, and it gets a lot of great praise for its acting. All in all, it's just a movie where a cat is trying to find a mouse, and it's just a lot of yelling in between. As a person who's not from Boston, I guess I don't get the appeal of the whole Boston like crime scene sort of stuff. But with that, I don't. It's not gripping me in the way that you'd expect it to. I think it gets a lot of praise for how it is gripping and how it tells a cohesive story, but I think the acting in it does fall flat sometimes because they just yell and yell and yell and yell. And at some point, I just want to know when it stops. It just, for me, that's my gripe with it. I know it's not everybody's gripe, but that's my gripe with it.
All right, they don't yell the whole time. They yell a lot, but they don't yell the whole time. There are some very good performances from top-notch actors. And yes, I will give you Mark Wahlberg's performance is mostly yelling, but it's still a great performance, and he comes off as intimidating and somehow in a new way than we've seen Mark Wahlberg before. Jack Nicholson plays an insanely great crime boss. Again, it's weird that like these characters feel like they've done this before, and yet it still feels new and it still feels fresh. You don't have to be from Boston to get the Boston thing, but the fact that Boston is sort of a character in the movie, I think sort of makes it that much better. You say Zodiac took place in San Francisco. I didn't remember that. San Francisco really didn't take on the same shape that Boston did in Zodiac. And I think that's what made for a better crime landscape in The Departed is that they had that character of the town to sort of play in. Whereas in Zodiac, I was just sort of like, okay, where are we again? The Zodiac killer, the Enigma, comes out in like a hood and like kills someone in a car in a field.
Yeah, they're in the
1
60s.
minute to go.
They're in the 60s, so it's a time frame. The time frame is a character in itself, much like Boston's a character in itself. It takes place in an era that murders are at a supreme all-time high, but they don't know what is causing these murders. They keep getting sent notes. They keep getting sent these cryptic things, and they have to try to piece it together. They have a cartoonist trying to take the helm of this case, a cartoonist played by Jake Gyllenhaal, who I think puts in a very good performance. You have Robert Downey Jr. in his first performance, and then Tropic Thunder, and then Iron Man, what everybody knows him for in his rebirth. But you have Robert Downey Jr. putting in his first good performance since his downfall. And that's pretty important to me, too. You have Mark Ruffalo in a very good role also. You have Chloe Sevigny. You have, I can't name anybody else now, but I think that's a lot of good performances down the list. 4 good performances is a pretty good amount of performances.
Time.
All right, guys, that 5 minutes goes by quick. But again, 2 great movies you're arguing for here. We're going to shut it down here with the 60-second closings. And Asher, we'll start with you with your closing statement.
Listen, I'm not going to win this argument unless I bring up something else, so I'm going to bring up something else. The fact that The Departed uses actors in this way and is simply just one thing. I'm not a rat. I'm telling you I'm not a rat. Well, I'm not a mole. I'm telling you I'm not a mole. I'm not a rat. I'm not a mole. I'm not a rat. I'm not a mole. I'm not a rat. Do you see how repetitive this shit is? It gets kind of tiring after a while. That is the plot of the movie. There is no other twist and turn besides I'm a rat. I'm a mole. We got to find these 2 guys. That's it. And it's a lot of yelling. Sure, Boston's a great set piece for a place. Fantastic. But you have the 1960s in Zodiac. You have a very good premise with an Enigma-like villain who hasn't been solved yet. And isn't that creepy in itself, the fact that it hasn't been solved to this day, putting together a very creepy movie that gives you the idea that he could still be out there. It could still be happening, and we don't know about it. That's the kind of perception that I get from Zodiac versus the perception that I get from The Departed, which is kind of a parody at this point because everybody shit.
All right, Nick, take us home on this one. 60 seconds.
Sure. You say the time frame as a character. I really don't remember anything from the movie specifically that makes it sort of a character. The problem, everything you just said that the movie does, that's not true. The real life story gives you those feelings. Putting it in movie form kind of sucks because at the end you don't get a payoff. You follow, for some reason, you follow writers who you never feel are in any danger because you know they weren't in real life, solving puzzles that you know don't get solved. And it's just like, why am I watching this if I know it's going to lead to no conclusion? The people who die, I don't feel for, I don't connect to because they're just nameless faces in the movie, not in real life. So the crime that happens, I think the key words are crime and thriller here. The Departed is thrilling throughout the entire movie. You never know who's going to get killed, who's going to get discovered. You can say it sounds repetitive, but the fact is it still manages to surprise you at the end, even if there's a few repetitive beats in there. Zodiac is just sort of bland, it's sort of slow-paced, and it ultimately leads to nothing. And I get that's what happens in real life, but real life was more interesting in the movie in this case, and that's why I don't think David Fincher's style worked the same way it did in Seven or did in Fight Club when he could write these original stories that had satisfying endings.
All right. There you have it, guys. Judges, it's our turn. Malcolm, we're going to start with you. Who you want to give your point to this fight?
Of course, you'll go to me first on this one. I'm going to lean slightly towards Ash on this. Like, it was a great match all around. I think Ash has said a few more good points, like especially talking about how repetitive Departed is and all that. Also talking about how great Zodiac is. I think he managed to hit more than what Nicholas did, but I mean it was a very close one, but it's slightly on Ash's side for me.
All right, that's one for Asher. I will go next. It was another great fight. You guys were pretty even the whole way through. The one when I judge a match like this or a question like this, when it's one movie versus another, what's better? I try to go by which argument gets me more excited to watch that movie. And I think for this particular one, it was Nick. Nick had just a little bit more of what his movie was about, what was going on. He came on at the end there in his closing argument about how it was more of a, really hit the crime thriller beats. And, Asher got really hooked on that, the yelling. I don't understand that criticism, to be honest. I hear a lot about a lot of movies. People like us are going to yell. It's realistic. That's how they're going to talk to each other. Yeah, I'm going with Nick on this one. So Andrew, it all comes down to you.
You son of a bitch. These are two of my favorite movies of all time. I heard a lot from Asher. I just heard more from Asher than I heard from Nick. However, Nick in his closing argument really stepped on the gas. It was a runaway until that last closing argument, and in it, was it enough though? I didn't hear enough about The Departed. I just did not hear enough about The Departed other than the great performances and Boston being a character. Aside from those two things, I didn't. Okay, man, why did you guys have to make this so hard for me? Because you did bring up that closing. All right, I know I have to make a decision, so I'm going to go. Even though I personally think The Departed is a better movie, I heard more from Zodiac, so I'm going to say Zodiac.
Jesus Christ.
All right, and that is the point for Ash. You see how hard this is, folks.
Yeah.
We judge these matches. We take it seriously.
Yeah, that was the movie I was going to fall on.
Yeah.
Like, that was not the one I thought I was going to win. Oh, I was going to choose The Departed. Are you kidding me? It's such a better movie.
You see, I'm the opposite. I actually think Zodiac's better than Departed, but
they're both great. I love them both.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you guys are making it hard on us, and that makes for a good match. So we will go into our third question here with the score tied 1-1, which means we will have at least one speed round question at the end of the fight. So our third regulation fight. What comedy sequel or spinoff should never have been made? And Asher, it's your turn to go first with your 90-second opening.
Wow, Jim Carrey properties just don't get lucky, do they? I mean, let's talk about them. We got The Mask and The Son of the Mask. We got Dumb and Dumber and Dumb and Dumberer. And then I think the one that takes the cake is Ace Ventura and Ace Ventura Jr. Pet Detective. Do you guys know about this movie? If not, I'll tell you about it. Ace Ventura Jr. Pet Detective is about this kid who looks like Ace Ventura. He's a chubby kid, and he has to go solving crimes in the animal unit. It's Ace Ventura, but small, and with none of the charisma or talent that Jim Carrey had in his movies. Jim Carrey was a godsend in the 90s. He created such amazing characters that you wanted to root for and you wanted to laugh for. He was funny. He was great. Why would you make an Ace Ventura movie without any recollection of Jim Carrey in it? It doesn't make sense to me at all. It's a boring movie. It's stupid. No laughs at all in it. No warranted laughs at all. It's just one of those terrible movies. And the only time they bring up Ace Ventura, the original, it's like they mention him as his like long lost father in like an orphan scene, which is stupid. That's not how you should do it. But of course they continue to do it. That's why I choose Ace Ventura Jr. Pet Detective as the worst spinoff.
Okay. That sounds pretty bad. Nicholas, can you beat it? You got 90 seconds to open your argument.
No, I can't beat that. That's a way worse movie than the one I picked. Luckily, the question is not which is the worst movie. It's which movie should have never been made. And I am picking a movie that literally angers me to my core because it has set our human race back a generation and made the children of the world look up to animated characters who can do nothing but make them stupider. I am talking about Minions. And I'm talking about the impact Minions had. You're right. No one knew. We'll get to that in the round, but Minions made over $1.2 billion. Every child in America saw it 4 times over, and every child in America got stupider. Our world is literally worse off for this movie having existed, and I will stand by that statement all night. It's bad. It's stupid. Their jokes are not funny. When I was a kid, we had the Iron Giant. Now we have Minions. This has literally made the next generation of America stupider. And I'm very scared for what happens when the future leaders of America are talking like Bob and Jim and whoever the stupid Minions' names are who make crude sexual jokes in a weird kids movie where they don't even speak English, and it pisses me off to my very core. Minions isn't great. The end.
Okay, Ace Ventura Jr. versus Minions. Fight it out, guys. You got 5 minutes.
Okay, the last one's named Kevin, by the way, and you know how
whatever. Do it, Bob, Jim.
Yeah, I haven't. Okay, Despicable Me 1 and 2 I thought were very good. I didn't see Despicable Me 3. I saw Minions. I thought it was fine. Okay, I thought it was a fine movie. I didn't think the characters are so stupid that they're making children stupider by watching it. I thought it was just one of those harmless movies that happened to get $1 billion in revenue. I think that's great for the economy. We need that in our economy. Are you kidding me? To bring the world around with the movie, with a box office total I got, that's incredible. Ace Ventura Jr., on the other hand, came out, I believe, 24 years after the first one, and I believe 20 years after the second one, when no child had any recollection of the first one because it didn't come out when they were alive. Why would they bring it back for a new generation when this guy is trying to parody Jim Carrey? It doesn't make any sense to me at all. Minions came out following the wealth of Despicable Me 1 and 2, so it makes sense that it came out at that time. People did want it. They looked after all of the spin-off characters. You look at spin-off characters, the Minions were some of them, and they wanted that movie. It was made because of it, and it made the money because of it.
Sure. First of all, sorry for laughing. I did not expect you to come at this from an economic angle, but I will counter that right now. All it did was take money out of the pockets of hardworking people to take their kids to see it 4 or 5 times.
Sure.
And maybe you don't agree. Maybe you don't agree that it lessened the IQ of America. I certainly think it did, or not just America, the world. Like the generation below us, I think it ruined their intelligence. But No, it took over our lives for like a full 3 years. They were in every bit of promotional advertising. I literally wanted to go insane. I could not get away from a stupid minion. We're talking about erasing a movie from existence. Ace Ventura Jr. had almost no impact. It made like less than $300,000 at the box office. You had to explain to us what it was because we've never seen it. And if we're getting rid of it, it's really not going to make a huge difference. But getting rid of Minions would do so much good. And I agree. I like Despicable Me 1 and 2. I also didn't see 3 because I saw Minions and I was like, screw this franchise. I've had enough of people talking about bananas and showing me little yellow butts on these weird creatures that I don't like. And it's super weird. Scarlet Overkill is the name of the villain, and Overkill is exactly what she was.
Great.
And it's just a ridiculous movie. And I will agree, Ace Ventura Jr. is probably the worst movie. But if we're talking about getting rid of a movie that should never have been made, the impact that Minions has had is nothing but a negative one. And getting rid of it would do so much better for us.
Listen, it got Sandy Bullock more work, didn't it? It made everybody. It made everybody know the wonders of potassium. That's great too, right?
No,
I mean, these are just things on things on things that Minions helped propel into the world. Yellow became a very popular color in fabrics. That's another incredible thing. I'm a huge fan of yellow. So when I see yellow about, I love yellow. The overall industry skyrocketed. Goggles, all-time high. I mean, the Halloween costumes that came because of it were incredible. If you're talking about people speaking gibberish, I want to go back to The Sims. That's when people started to speak gibberish in the pop culture mainstream. If you want to talk about an animated movie that people could not shut up about for a year and a half, I'm going to bring that back to Frozen. Let It Go, please. I worked at a day camp. They kept singing that for hours on end. That was the movie that pissed me off. Minions, movies. That movie's fine. It's harmless. It got the money it deserves. It's a fine movie. They're playing this.
1 minute to go.
Right, let's go with this. At least Ace Ventura Jr. teaches kids how to treat animals correctly. There's something good about Ace Ventura Jr. for the people who saw it. Maybe they thought the little kid was funny. All I'm saying is it did not reach a wide audience. It did not have the effect that Minions had. It took over our lives, and I literally could not go to a movie without seeing a freaking Minion. And I go to the movie so often. And I know.
Listen, the Pompadour was ruined for me by Ace Ventura Jr. The Pompadour was ruined for me. I was thinking of getting a Pompadour.
I could name every movie in the year that Minions came out. It was ruined for me.
Oh, really?
You might say Frozen is worse, but Frozen's not a sequel or a spinoff. I agree; it had the same kind of effect. Minions was so much worse.
I chose Ace Ventura Jr. because this kid has a fucking pompadour. He treats the animals like garbage. By the way, that is a blatant disregard for the point. He treats those animals like garbage.
I don't think he does.
He's
all about animals. Be kind to the environment.
All right, guys, let's rein it in. That's your 5 minutes. So let's take a second, take a breath. And Nick, we're going to go to you first for your closing.
Give me just 1 second.
Take your time, whenever you're ready, when you start talking.
Ace Ventura did not reach a wide enough audience to have that huge of an impact. Removing it from existence would really change nothing in society. It would not do anything better. Getting rid of the Minions would put good dollars back in hardworking people's pockets to go see good movies. It would get rid of an advertising campaign that literally ruined the cinema experience for me for like a year and a half to 2 years, and everyone else. It has made the generation below us dumber just by watching it. We used to have good cartoon characters. We used to have Toy Story. We used to be able to look up to these animated characters and learn lessons from them. What lessons are you learning from the Minions? How to be an idiot? Because that is the only lesson I got from that movie. They bumble around. They do nothing. They talk stupidly. They're in a medieval torture chamber. Like, explain that one to your kids, because, like, I don't know how you're doing that. It is weird. It is bad. Ace Ventura might be a worse movie, but if you get rid of it, it changes nothing on the timeline that is what our timeline is. Getting rid of Minions makes a huge difference, and it doesn't taint an otherwise good franchise in Despicable Me 1 and 2, but that's literally the least of my worries. I'm worried about the people who saw this movie.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you, Nicholas. And Asher, we'll go to you for your closing.
Minions served as a prequel for the Despicable Me franchise, something that I actually was interested in. At the end of the movie, they meet Groot, which is pretty cool. I think that's pretty interesting. Now, what does Ace Ventura Jr. do? Well, let's see. It facilitates bullying, facilitates animal cruelty, it facilitates terrible hairdos, it facilitates very bad impressions of incredible actors. What does Minions do? Oh, it encourages eating produce. Bananas are great. Potassium's awesome. It encourages wearing eye safety gear. Goggles, awesome. The overall industry skyrocketed because of it. It's a cute, harmless movie. And the kids wanted toys. They got the toys from it, okay? You get kids laughing and rolling around. That's fine. See a mindless movie, why don't you? See a movie like Ace Ventura with a bunch of fart jokes and stuff, and just animal cruelty and being mean to other people doesn't make any sense for a movie about a 12-year-old who's trying to play a character from 25 years ago. That doesn't make any sense to me. This Minions thing is just another pattern in the industry that continues to go, and I think it's
my favorite.
Okay. Two bad movies I think we all agree do not need to exist, but we need to determine which one of these two should not have been made. I'm going to go first this time. And yeah, you guys both gave good arguments as to why your movie was pointless. But I think one of you really hit home with the overall cultural impact. And that's Nick. I think Nick really just hit why, he brought the passion as to why this movie was bad for all of us. And, Asher made a valiant effort to come up with some positive things about Minions, but I just don't think he was able to pull it off with what Nick brought. So I'm giving my point to Nick. And Andrew, we're going to you next.
I want to see those overall sales. I want to see those charts. Yeah, this was sort of the opposite of the last one, where someone was where Nick was really leading the charge, and then Asher in those last 60 seconds started to kind of creep up and tail him, but he just couldn't catch up to Nick when Nick said that it made no impact, so therefore no one would miss it, and I did not hear anything to counter that. So Nick pulled that one out for me.
Okay, that's 2-0 point for Nick. That does leave us with a score of 2-1, and that means we're going to a speed round. Speed round will work like this. I'm going to read you a question. I'm going to read it twice. Do not give your choice until I've read the question the second time. When you know what answer you want to give, say your name. And judges, I'll need you to help me out. Make sure I hear who says it first. Whoever says their name first, they get a 5 count to give their pick. After that, the second person, they will get to take their pick. Whoever speaks first goes first. And in our first speed round, it is 30-second opening, then a 15-second closing. And remember, in your opening arguments, you're only going to discuss your pick. You're not going to knock down the other person until you get to that second round of fights. Everybody good to go?
Mm-hmm.
All right. First speed round question. What is the best, or what are, or is the best practical effects in a Guillermo del Toro film?
Asher.
Well, let me repeat it.
What?
I'm going to repeat it. I'm going to say it twice.
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
you have to wait until the second time.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't get that. Sorry.
That's okay.
I forgot to.
All right.
Okay.
Okay. Best Guillermo del Toro practical effects.
Asher.
Yeah.
Go, 5.
The Pale Man.
The Pale Man?
The Pale Man in Pan's Labyrinth.
Okay. And Nick, when you got yours?
Do the fish man in The Shape of Water.
Why did I do? Okay.
All right. So, Asher, you went first. So, you got 30 seconds. Whenever you're ready.
In 2006, Guillermo del Toro gave us a movie called Pan's Labyrinth, a Spanish-speaking movie about the Pale Man and many of the little crazy monsters that live in that movie. The Pale Man is created on this weird mask, and he has eyes on his hands, and if he sees you, he kills you. That is the point of the movie. It's trying to scare you with this weird fairy tale mysticism, and I think Guillermo del Toro pulled it off in a time that CGI is being taken for granted and is being used overly. It's being used overly in this time of practical effects.
Okay, Nick, you got 30 seconds for the Fishman.
The Shape of Water is a movie that's otherwise grounded in realism. If The Fishman didn't work, it would have been very obvious. It's so detailed, it's so fantastical, it's so out there, and it had to work in water. And if it didn't work, it would have been clearly obvious because it wouldn't have fit in with the rest of the movie. Doug Jones does a great performance. There's so much detail. Like I said, it has to work in water. The Fishman has to be able to go underwater, and it had to be realistic enough for us to follow not only through the whole movie, but for us to believe that they could have a relationship with a human woman, which he convinced most of the audience was a real possible thing. The Fishman led the movie all the way through.
Okay. Asher, you have a 15-second rebuttal.
There's fish dick in that movie. I don't want to see that. I want to see some scary stuff like the Pale Man. I want to see stuff in a Pan's Labyrinth with a bunch of crazy creatures, and the Pale Man is the one that tops the list of all the crazy creatures in that movie, with using no CGI in a time that they use a lot of CGI. So that's why I choose the Pale Man.
Okay. And Nick, you have 15 seconds for your retort.
The Pale Man is not a difficult design. It's not that hard to pull off, and it does not take much of the movie, so there's not much more chance for it to fail, whereas the Fishman takes up the whole movie. It's so much more detailed, and it has to work in water, and it has to fit in with the world around it. Is that time?
2,
and
1.
The Pale Man starts.
Time.
Okay. That's our first speed round question. Judges, it comes to us, and we're going to flip back to the beginning, so Andrew, we'll start with you this time.
Can you repeat the question for me?
The question is, what is the best practical effect in a Guillermo del Toro film? And I know I'm butchering that name.
That's fine. Rephrasing the question, rehearing the question like that makes this a little easier for me. Asher gave an argument for the better character. Nick gave a better answer for why the effects work better. Especially the fact that it had to work in water, and it did, and it still looked good. So I'm giving this to Nick.
All right, that's one vote for Nick and the Fishman. Malcolm.
Like hearing the previous question made it easier for me to it goes to Nick as well. He just had more about the actual practical effects. But I mean, it's probably the first time in a while we're probably going to hear the phrase "we see fish stick" in the movie.
I thought he said fish stick, and I was like,
that works too. So that means your winner is Nick, the name Twohig. Great match, guys. You both put up a heck of a fight. Went to the speed round, but Nick did just pull it off in here at the end with this final score of 3-1. Let's real quick do some post-match interviews here. Nick, we'll start with you. How are you feeling about your performance tonight?
Feels pretty good. I'm tired. I'm glad we were able to get this out, and most importantly, I had a damn blast. So any chance I get to shit on the Minions, I will take. If we all want to reconvene at some point when this is not going on YouTube and just shit on the movie The Minions, I will gladly do that. But overall, hats off to Asher. Thank you for a fun time. I hope I get to see you all again soon. And yeah, I'll definitely be around. This is a fun thing, so I'll be back for sure.
All right, and Asher, great performance. Just came up a little bit short. You kept it close the whole time. How you feeling about this match?
I'm feeling great. I completely forgot about The Shape of Water, so I forgot about basically every Guillermo del Toro movie. I'm like, oh fuck, he did Pan's Labyrinth, right? Yeah. So that's on me. Also, let's get hashtag fish dick trending. See that go. But yeah, I probably should prepare more, but I always think that I bring a lot of entertainment to it, regardless of if I win or not. So, you know, that's what I try to go for. I don't try to win all the time, as you can clearly tell. Well, I tried to win, but I didn't, as you can clearly tell. But yeah, Nick gave a great arguments that I really couldn't debate. So yeah, I have fun.
Absolutely, and yeah, it definitely was a very entertaining match. Let me go to my judge real quick. Malcolm, you got final thoughts?
I mean, I was disappointed no one picked Hellboy for best practical effects in a Del Toro movie, but it was an entertaining match. I mean, with hearing Asher going on about how Minions teaches kids how important it is to eat bananas and all that, like it was just a lot of entertainment.
Dude, those overall sales.
I protect you. Think about that.
And finally, let's go to Andrew. Andrew, final thoughts on this match.
I think I need to go out and buy a pair of goggles. I guess I missed that. I guess I missed that craze. Nah, this was entertaining. This is exactly what I was hoping for between these two. How dare you have to make me choose between two of my favorite movies of all time? I will never forgive you for that. But no, this was fun.
All right. Well, Andrew, just remember, Goodfellas is better. So
No, it's
for Nicholas, for Asher, Andrew, Malcolm, myself, Kirk Olkowski, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.